Hello everybody, this is JackB1024 and welcome to episode 9 of our dynamic Factorio. So in the last episode we set up all the combinators we need for our first state of our state machine, and this episode the plan is to get the second and third state up and running. Now the second state is our computing stage, which will figure out what we currently have on each bank and which banks we should change, and the third stage will do those changes. Now a quick change to yesterday's memory circuit that I did. If we look over here, this is what yesterday's memory circuit looked like, and we had our memory cells with the red line going into these decider combinators, which would output when A is 0, and we had these arithmetic combinators that were connected to our constant combinator that would tell us which line to read from, and they were connected on the red line, with the green line connected to the A value for that cell. I'll get rid of that because we don't actually need that anymore, and actually I wanted to keep you, but that's fine, I'll put you back down. The change that we did is that our memory cell now goes to the arithmetic combinator instead of going to the decider combinator. It's got the same settings, and now our shared red line is on the decider combinators instead of on the arithmetic combinators. Now the main reason for this is it gets rid of a 1-tick delay, because when our constant combinator was connected to the arithmetic combinators, you need to wait for them to process the new A value, then pass that into the decider combinator, which will then need to check if it's now 0 and then pass it out. This way, when we change the value on this red line, it goes straight to our decider combinators who are all ready to check if A is 0, and so it only takes 1 tick instead of the 2. The only downside of this setup is that it means that when we change our memory cell, it actually takes another tick before these decider combinators are ready to output the new value. But because we would have needed to wait the extra tick anyway, that's, you know, an extra tick wait when changing the memory cell, but not an extra tick wait when trying to read, instead of an extra tick wait every time we try to read and change the memory cell. So I think this layout's much better. There is a layout you could do by shuffling around which ones are on the red wires, which ones are on the green wires, so that you can basically set it up. Actually, do I still have... yeah. Actually, I wonder if I can just... yeah, I can just bring my paint over here. So this is a different world that I've got going on. And you can see on this world I'm using the arithmetic combinators as the memory cells. So you can see that there's our write and there's the read line. I think this is our reset line for this setup, if I remember correctly. And you can see that by having these both on the red line, I can use the green line to connect to our read and the red line to do that. But this setup is better for certain conditions, mainly if you want to do multiple reads. It is nicer because to do that you can just hook the green line again through. You can have a different red line here, a different red line on the output, and that gets you a second line to read from. And I think we're going to need a second line to read from. I was thinking about doing some things, and one of them required a second read line. I wanted to connect to... oh, whoa, you've got a lot of connections. Okay. It's just... yeah, I'll just reset my connections on this. That looks nicer. Cool. And I'll move this pole to there. We'll put a second line here. Just connect it up. And so they are... that's basically the only changes I've done between episodes, at least to the circuits. I noticed also if you pay attention to the research, it slowed down a massive amount at the end of the last episode. That was because our red science packs were running out because we were low on iron. That's because this iron mine here is getting pretty exhausted. There's very little of it left. The one line that actually has plenty of iron goes to our steel plates. So we're down to only about 152,000 iron ore left there. So we're going to have to start getting iron from here, iron from here. That gets us another 600,000. And then hopefully by that time we should be all ready to get our rail system up to get iron from this nice patch up here, which has almost 5 million in it. In fact, if we include that in, that's 5 million. 5.3 million. So that'll be useful. So enough talking about what's happened between episodes, let's get on to making our circuit for today's episode. So state 2 is our computing stage. Now it's going to be most likely the most complex stage out of them all, but for the moment we want to just keep it simple and we just want to make a proof of concept. So I've thought of essentially 2 different presets we want on our belts, on our banks. So there we go. So here's the first preset. We have gear wheels here, it's red science, transport belts, copper wires, circuits, inserters, green science, more copper wires because you need so many to make circuits, and then just 2 banks that are free. So that's our first layout. Our second layout will be the same on the first 2, so again gears, red science, but we're going to be making military science packs. So instead we will have the yellow ammo, red ammo, grenades, turrets, military science, and the last 3 will all be blank in that case. So to switch between the 2, I'm going to just use I think I'll use a red signal. We use a red signal for a lot of different things, mainly because it's the writing signal, the resetting signal, I should say, to these memory cells, which means we can't actually use them in any of the banks. So it's kind of like a signal that we can use in our circuitry because it will never be used on any of our banks. At least it won't be read from any of our banks, because if our bank read a red signal and then tried to write it to one of these memory cells, it would just end up clearing the cell. So we'll have a red 0, and I will have 3 constant combinators, yep. So these are just going to store what each bank should have. And we're going to index these from 1 because you can't tell. If the signal's 0, it's not actually going to output anything. So we want gears in our first, we want red science in our second, we want transport belt to be 3, copper wire 4, circuits 5, inserters 6. Oh, they added an extra row. Green science 7. It used to be 5 by 3. And copper wires in 8, which is why we actually have the extra constant combinator here, because if we put another copper wire 8 here, it would just add up to this 4 and have 12, which is not what we want. So on our other layout, first 2 are the same, then we want yellow ammo 3, red ammo 4, grenades 5, what comes after turrets 6, and military science on 7. Cool, so that's our 2 layouts done. So we'll put down 3 decider combinators. And we'll need extra. Oh, good. So we've got our stack bonus 2, which means that non-stack inserters now have a bonus. Now to make military science, we're going to need this, and to make turrets, we're going to need this science. So let's start with researching turrets. This is a really late time to be researching turrets compared to what I normally do. But normally I don't give myself so much room for biter expansion. In fact, biters aren't even expanding on this playthrough. So now we can do military science, and that also won't take too long. Yep, that connects up to those three. So these will be if red is 0, output everything, and if red is 1. In fact, what I'm going to do here, I'll put a red as -1, and we'll use red as 0, just to make sure that red, that was a great timing again of science, just to make sure that red never leaves this constant combinator part of the circuit, because we definitely don't want red infecting any of our memory cells and resetting them. So let's look at science to see if there's something worth researching. Tool belt. That is something I do actually want. Okay, and we're going to want another counter. We'll use signal 0. Yep, signal 0, as that tells us... Oh no, that's in signal A. Okay, we'll use signal A. That's alright. Signal A is less than... Make it less than 10. So it goes 0 to 9. Which is... Yep, we have 10 banks, so that works fine. What does this actually go up to? A is 5. Okay. So we'll just 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let them do that. I actually moved the red report a bit closer. So there we go. That means we can now check every single bank that we have. So what we'll want to do is we'll want to check the output of them, compare it to, I think green line should work fine. For each thing. For each thing that equals A, output it. A is defaultly 0, so nothing's going to equal that, but let's use a pulse generator. Pulse an A, and we'll do that on the red line. So A is now equal to 1, so this should be outputting the... Ah yeah, good, red's on, so this is going to output gear from here. If we turn this off, we'll be getting gear from the top. Good, so this signal is telling us what we're expecting to get. The last thing we want to do, anything equals A, 1, 2, 3, yep, okay. A times -3, because A is going to equal A in each of these cases. So we'll just add that on, and that'll get rid of the A signal. That'll be on this line. So we now have a signal, which is telling us what we expect to see on this line. So we expect to see gear wheels. Now, if we look at how our state works for this, remember we have this combinator, and it's telling us what's on each line. That's via bitwise decoding, so we've got the 1 bit, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. If we extend that, we can use the 64-bit, which is the next power of 2, to tell it what should be getting crafted here. So yeah, I'll quickly run over and do that. I can't remember if, yeah, this one looks like, yep. So these are all going to stop because they're now getting told not to make anything. But if we do that and 64, we output it to there, and we give this, turn this off the moment, this was making gears. 64. There we go, all our machines have turned back on again. making gear wheels. And now we can control what they make via this constant combinator, which is at the moment just emulating what our brain's going to send across. And it's also going to be what is read when we read our brain. So that means we know in each memory cell, whatever value is 64, that's what that bank is making. Because the values below 64 will be what the belts are set to, and the value that's equal to 64 will be what the bank is making. So, yep, cool. So we'll want to read, so that's our red line, we'll want to read on A. So we've got what we want. Put that there just so it's got some room. And there we go. We'll need an up where all these poles are later. So you're reading a value? Good. Yep, that works fine. So we want iron gear wheels, and we've got, well, none of these are actually telling us what it's crafting because this is just random junk. But this will allow us to write some useful values. So let's say number 1 is making gear wheels. Why did that not set it? We're getting an A is 7. Okay, this is set to a value. There we go. Cool. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. So our first circuit is now saying that it's making gear wheels. We just manually set that though. So what we want to do now, we'll want to read this value. Bring it down here so we can read it. And we'll read it the same way we read it on our banks. We'll just AND it with 64 and see what we get. Okay, and yeah, cool. That should be easy enough to do. We'll then multiply it by -1. And we'll get this value. For each thing greater than 0, set it to 1. Yeah, because you're a comparison. Yep. Cool. So, from here we have -64 for our gear wheels, and from here we have 1 for our gear wheels. So this is what the bank has, this is what the bank wants. So what we'll do, we'll add them both together into this combinator, and we'll just say for anything greater than 0, yep, output it as 1. So the only input into this is going to be what we're making and what we want. And this is -63 because we're making gear wheels, so we're taking off 64. But we're only adding in 1 for the gear wheels that we want to make. But let's say bank 2 is also making gear wheels. So we'll just quickly set that up. A is 2. Okay, cool. So now bank 2 is also making gear wheels. So if we started to check the next bank, we can see the next bank is meant to make red signs, but it's making gear wheels. So into here we have -64 for our gear wheels, because that's what it's making, but we have +1 for our red signs, because that's what we want to make. And so we're getting out a signal of red signs, which is good. That's telling us, okay, bank 2 we want to change to make red signs. So now we need a memory cell to store that we want to change this. Probably don't need the name, same size. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 should be enough. It's not even necessary to have 6. It's just that with 6 you can do it in one 1/10 of the state machine. it would make sense to have these the same size. Well, if they're the same size, you can change every single bank. This is basically restricting how many banks we can change in one cycle. And let's get rid of some more trees. Yep, cool. So in this case, we have 3 bits of info we need. We need the bank number we want to change. We need what we want to change it to. And we need which of these banks we're going to store this change in. So we're going to have a counter. In fact, this is just going to be a memory cell. So red is 0, output, yep, signal 0. And for this one, I'm going to use signal 0 instead of A. 0 and 0. And these are all going to be going crazy because this is checking A when it should be checking 0. Let's just reset them all. There we go. Why have I got you up to a pulse generator? I don't actually need that, but okay. Don't think I'll be needing the extra line, but we'll just keep it there just in case. So why am I using signal 0 here instead of A? Well, because A is going to store the bank. And if you remember our presets, they both have gears in the first and second position. So even if we switch between the first and second preset, we don't need to change our first 2 banks. And so because of that, we don't actually need to store them here. And so 0 will be basically the change number, and A will store the bank that change has to happen to. So this is storing our change number. Okay, we need to make something that can make the signal that we need to send over here. So if we're getting a value out of this, we need to increment what 0 is for the next tick. We also need to store our A value and the change signal over here. We need to store some more data later, but that's enough for the moment. So that's got a value. Yep. So let's do, if this has any value, we'll output a red. Again, we'll just use red to signify that we're doing a change. And so what we need is we need the A value from over here. It goes up to this line here. Be careful not to cross-contaminate. So if we've got a value for red, we'll output our A value. We need this value as well. And we need the value from here. So I'll just put that in a arithmetic combinator, and I'll just add all these symbols up. We won't grab from there, we'll grab from there. Did that change anything important? No, that looks all fine. Okay, now this is one tick behind what this is. So yep. So on one tick, that'll pass through, that'll pass through. On the next tick, this will pass through. So we actually are 2 ticks behind. There we go. So we'll have had a frog in my throat. There we go. So we'll have on our one tick, we'll have this decider combinator being computed, outputting our red signal, and we'll have the 1 tick delay. Then the next tick we'll have this decider combinator outputting the new A signal and another tick delay, and then we'll have this, which will have an A signal, our red sign signal, and our bank that we want to write to, all set up. So then we just need to pass it through to this only when we want to do a write. The slightly annoying thing is that 0 signal can be 0, so I can't use that to check. So what we'll use to check instead, so we'll check with this signal, which means we need a 2 tick delay on that. Let that go to there. No, you don't need to be connected. Okay, so when we've got anything, this actually sets 3 different circuits in motion then. It'll set this circuit in motion, which will tell us which bank we're going to be changing. It'll set this in motion, which will be getting us which storage cell we're using. And it'll set this in motion, which will be getting ready to write it. So at the same time as this is outputting our new value that we need to write out, this will output the red signal. This will check if red's greater than 0, that is we want to do a write, and it will output everything. This will negate our red, so we get rid of that signal, and then we can put these two together and add it to there. Yep. Now we want that to only happen for a tick. So, oops, thought that was my pulse generator, but it isn't. There we go. Now we don't only want that, we also want to increase this in the same tick, or close enough. Yep, no, that's not going to write anything just because this red signal isn't going to be set. Okay. So put a pulse generator there, and that's got a red signal. We want to increase this thing. Yep, that should work fine. Do we grab it from there? Let's just see. Grab it from there. You have a 1 tick delay, you'll have a 1 tick delay. That'll take a few ticks. Okay, yeah, we can just grab it from here. And 0 with a 1. And that can connect. I'll connect it up to the red side. Okay, that seems to be that all set up. Now my only concern is that I don't think this is correctly synced up yet, and I don't see any way to make this red signal 0 if we've got multiple banks. There's also no way to increment that automatically in our current system at the moment. Okay, let's figure out a good way to automatically increment this. The easiest way is just to see how long this whole compute will take, if it takes the longest amount of time. So that would take a tick. What's the slowest way here? Most likely, actually, it's going to be the read. So the read takes a tick, comes back here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 ticks is enough time for us to do everything. So I'll put a 10 tick clock on this. So 0 is less than 10, output 0. You give us a 0 signal, that's our clock. And when 0 equals 9, we'll output an A. It's doing a lot of writes to this one. Okay, well our reader seems to be working fine. Yeah, that's fine, you've got values. O is which bank we want to write to. That looks fine. Why are we writing to this bank so much? Oh, because this is only checking for increasing values. Okay, there we go. Yep. Yeah, because this red signal seems to be basically always on. Because it's always on. We're always getting our O value through. Because this is only checking for values that increase. Our O value is never increasing. Is it to that? Okay, cool. So now we need to think how we can nicely do this. Well, because everything's tick perfect, what we can do, disconnect that. Connect it up through this. Yep. Give this a constant combinator. And I'll connect that also on the red line. Now this tells us which tick of our internal cycle we're up to. So what we will do you want to use red line or green line? It doesn't really matter. Actually, we can't use the red line because the constant combinator is on that. Green line's connected to that though. I'll just give it an isolator. Where's one of our... So I use that just so that I could use the green line without using this one's green line. That doesn't mean we have a 1 tick delay, which is fine. Now, how long do I expect this to take? So you'll take 1 tick, so that's fine. 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'll take 5 ticks that way. The other direction is a read. Well, so that's 1, 2, 3, 3 ticks. So about 5 ticks. So what's our tick counter? 0. Yep. 0 equals 0, output everything, and we'll set 0 to -6. Yep, and I see only zeros coming through. So that's our fix. And I need to reset that line. And actually we should reset everything. Do that, and we'll see how this goes. So this is telling us bank 2 we need to change to red signs, bank 3 we need to set to inserters, bank 4 needs to be copper wires, bank 5 is circuits, bank 6 is inserters, and bank 7 is screen signs. So there, this circuit seems to work fine. There's just no way for us to automatically go to the next state when we need to. So we should add that in. Actually, this one can't even go to the next state when we need to anyway. So I'll do that in a bit. Now for the next state. Our next state is easy enough. It's basically just reading these cells. And once we get a blank one, we can skip. So actually I can probably put the third state down here. Yep, we'll have a memory cell that we can reset. I'll give it this to reset it. These are indexed by the 0 signal. Yep. So reset on red. Good. I need some sort of way to count up, so we'll just use a different combinator there. Easy enough. Do I want to connect you? I'll connect you to the green line. Yep. There we go. You can just be the 0 signal, so that'll just count up. Easy enough. You're red to reset it. Good. Okay, so we want to that's the one that we want to read from. Here's the value we're reading. If everything's 0, it's time to go to the next stage. Otherwise, yeah, we just write it out. That's easy enough. So if everything equals 0, I'll put a single S. And we just put that into our pulse generator. Now we actually want another little thing here. Oop, I thought you were connected that way. So we'll go, yep, that way. So instead of outputting S, we'll output a red. That can go to here and here. Is that how we want it? Let me think. Because obviously this is going to be telling us to go to the next state, but we're not in the, what if we're not in the right state to be actually checking this? So I want to add something that checks if we're in the correct state, then let our red value go through, and then, yeah, and then finally we can have that. Which is basically, actually we just need a single arithmetic combinator here. And this just says red plus 0, output is S. Connect this up, we want this state to be S is -2 here. So it'll never tell it to go to the next state. Good. And actually I'm going to collect a light up there, just so that we can visually see when it's telling us to go to the next state. Yep, and we can actually use a similar circuit over here. So if S is 0, I want to pass through so exactly the same circuit over here as that, except this time we want to pass through our 0 signal. That can go there. That should be this. This is basically stage 3 all done then. So on stage 3, which is when S is negative, when S is 2, that'll enable which will start this counter going up. This counter will read through each memory cell, and as soon as we find a memory cell where we haven't got anything, we'll tell it to go to the next stage. So the last thing that you need is, this is part of stage 3 down here, would be sending a red signal to all our memory banks, basically resetting them. So we'll reset that, and we will put down a... Now, oh, this is... Okay, we can't use red here. That, or we can't use green. We have the state on the green line actually, so let's just quickly switch all these over to using red instead of using green. These two can get connected to each other on the green line, and that can get connected here. This is going to act as our state. So we're going to say our state is 2. Turn on. Cool, and we're probably reading from some really high number already. Let's add an extra light here. We'll just connect it to the... There we go, so that'll light up when we have info, and that'll light up when it's time to go to the next stage. Reset. Move view out of the way. So the top light should light up for about... What's this go up to? What, like a 1/6 of a second, so it'd be really quick. And the bottom light will light up. Ooh, I didn't see the top one light up at all there. We need to worry about the delay. 1, 2, 3. So we need a 3-tick delay before this one starts caring about if we're in the right state. Yep. Good, that does reach. So there we go, we've got a slight delay to give it enough time to at least read a cell. You reset? I'm not sure. If A is 0, if A is 0, no. There's our issue. Now if O is 0, oh, and this should be anything. Good, that's much better. That actually means we might not need our delay. Yeah, actually we won't need our delay because of that. Because by default we're going to be reading... There you go. At first we're going to be reading from the bottom row, which is the first one to get filled up. So if there's anything, this is going to be on, which means that this is not going to be outputting a value because... I mean, this won't be outputting a value because we'll be reading something. So that's stage 3 done. That's stage 2 done. We just need to deal with turning it on only when we're in stage. I keep calling them changing the index between 1 and 0 indexed. So S is 0 is set up, that's what we did yesterday. S is 1 is set up, S is 2 is set up, S is 3 is mostly set up. The only other change we need to do this is we need to check. Okay, we've got a counter here. Oh yeah, we can just do this. So we know we're getting a 0 signal when it's this stage. So 0 plus 0. Yep. Output red. Give that a tick generator. And connect that in. Cool. And this one will be connected to all our memory cells that are to be reset. So, you know, this cell here, this one here, and do we need to connect to this one over here? No, you reset by yourself. Don't think there's any over here that we need to connect it to. Ah, this one here. So you get connected. Basically anything reading from the red is a memory cell. Okay, so what's our time going? Oh. I wonder if I'm ever going to have a half-hour long episode. They seem to always be 40 plus minutes. Yeah, there we go. So this is our brain almost completed. We just need to deal with those, you know, switching in and out of the states. And then all we'll need to do is set up our circuit for each bank, which is going to be fairly simple. Just basically a memory cell, a way to know when we need to read it, and a way to know when we're writing to it. And that would be basically each bank set up. And that is our brain mostly done. Actually, it's about half done because I realized I haven't got any circuits done for the main bus lines. But the good news about that is that the main bus lines are going to be the exact same circuit we've got going here. Instead of reading banks, we'll be just reading lines. And our compute thing will tell us, you know, what we want each line to have, and if it has it, and we just write that to the line. So it's basically the 0, 1, and 2 state. We'll just have them run again, but checking the main bus lines. So we're actually going to change our state numbers. So it'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 will be our reset down here. So instead of being 3, it's 6. But yeah, that's the end of episode 9. Until next time, this is Jack B1024. Have a good day.